Juan?
Well, the American Psychological Association has approved a landmark measure banning members from taking part in interrogations of prisoners held in Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, Afghanistan, and all of the secret CIA black sites. Nearly 60% of members voted in favor of the referendum, and the largest turnout for an APA vote to date. APA officials initially suggested they would delay implementing the referendum for up to a year, but in a surprise move, APA President Alan Kasdan recently wrote President Bush to inform him of the decision.
The letter says, quote, "The effect of this new policy is to prohibit psychologists from any involvement in interrogations or any other operational procedures at detention sites that are in violation of the U.S. Constitution or international law. In such unlawful detention settings, persons are deprived of basic human rights and legal protections, including the right to independent judicial review of their detention. There have been many reports from credible sources of torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment of detainees during your term in office. Therefore, the American Psychological Association strongly calls on you and your administration to safeguard the physical and psychological welfare and human rights of individuals incarcerated by the U.S. government in such detention centers and to investigate their treatment to ensure that the highest ethical standards are being upheld." The referendum was spearheaded by a dissident APA group called the Coalition for an Ethical Psychology. We're joined right now by a member of the group who helped draft the referendum text. Dan Aalbers joins us now from Reno, Nevada. Welcome to Democracy Now! Dan Aalbers, talk about how this referendum was finally passed. There has been this growing dissident movement within the world's largest association of psychologists, the American Psychological Association. How'd you do it?
Well, this is really a community effort. I think that there was a lot of dissatisfaction with APA policy up until this point, and a group of us came together, Psychologists for an Ethical APA, Withhold APA Dues, and looked into the APA bylaws to find a way to bring this issue directly to the membership. And so I joined with Brad Olson, with Ruth Fallenbaum, two other dissident psychologists, and we just used old-fashioned networking. We spread it around, and I was really amazed to see the way this spread spontaneously. We did not ask a single group to endorse this referendum, but day after day, I would open my email and another group had come in spontaneously because people had been working autonomously in their own groups to bring this referendum forward, and it worked.
Dan Aalbers, I wanted to turn for a minute back a year ago to that town hall meeting in August of 2007, when hundreds of APA members gathered to discuss the issue of prisoner interrogations. This town hall meeting came right after the APA's Council of Representatives voted to reject the kind of ban that APA members have just approved by the referendum. You were among the outraged APA members to speak out.
My name is Dan Aalbers, and I am just another psychologist who thinks that the moral issue of our time has landed at our doorstep. I wanted to say just a few things. One, I think that there has not been today or in these last number of years enough discussion about the difference between the culture of science and the culture of an intelligence community. Scientists are committed to openness. Ultimately, what keeps us ethical is not our ethical code, is not our internal review boards, but it is that we publish our research, we present things at conferences, and ultimately the last test on whether or not we have been ethical or not is public scrutiny. This is very different from an intelligence organization which tends to want to control information. And there are these basic incompatibilities I think we have not addressed. The second point I want to make is about this moratorium that did not pass. We have made an enormous mistake, and I think it's not only did we do the wrong thing morally, we did not act in our best interests. We are now standing against the American Psychiatric Association, the American Medical Association, the British Psychological Society, numerous human rights organizations, the UN, the Council of Europe, and this detention and interrogation policy is going to go down. And once it does go down, we will find that we have secured the best cabin on the Titanic. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Wecker. I'm in private practice in San Francisco. I just want to propose a conflict that we have. It's like we're embedded in the military. You know, like the journalists who are embedded in the war. That's our problem. Most of our internships are all in the military, DOD, or mostly the VA. So I think we have this problem with ethics are really highfalutin. You know, it's hard for us to imagine people being tortured for a lot of us. And then we have our affiliation and our loyalty. So these are in conflict, and I think people couldn't imagine, you know, withdrawing from our responsibilities and our teamwork with these people in the military because of some highfalutin kind of ideals.
Dissenting psychologists over a year ago, after the referendum, which wasn't a referendum then, resolution was voted down to prohibit psychologist participation in these interrogations. Actually, at that time, the APA leadership tried to throw Democracy Now! Out of the open town hall meeting, saying they didn't want us to record anymore, but the psychologists fought back, and we were able to film, which is why we're able to bring this to you. Dan Aalbers, now the new president of the American Psychological Association, has, to your surprise, said this will be instituted now.
And I think that's a very significant change in policy, that now we have an opportunity to change course. You know, as I said a year ago, that this ship is going to go down. And I really think that psychology has an opportunity to become part of the cleanup crew to stop the abuses. When we have been participating, we have been collaborating, we have been helping Guantanamo stay afloat. Now that this detention interrogation program is going down, we now have an opportunity to be on the right side of this issue. It's what the members want. I think you heard it in that tape of the hall. That is the voice of the membership. We have close to 60% of members voting for this, and I'm really happy to see that President Kasdan understands that a good leader is led from below.
And Dan Aalbers, what's the practical effect of the ban now? Do members have to automatically stop, or is this an individual decision on their part still? How will it actually work out in practice?
That's something that remains to be seen. Again, we're very inspired by this letter. We hope that the APA is going to go forward with a full implementation, and full implementation means putting psychologists on the side of the detainees and not the detainers. And that will mean removing psychologists from these places that operate outside of and in violation of U.S. and international law. And so practically, it means psychologists out as soon as possible.
You know, it's interesting. This has not gotten a tremendous amount of attention outside the APA. Ironically, the New York Times had quite a significant piece on this, but it was the day they made an error, and they printed one page of the New York Times